There's a lot of things about me you don't know anything about, Daddy. Things you wouldn't understand. Things you couldn't understand. Things you shouldn't understand.
Few performers have become synonymous with the character they created like Paul Reubens did with Pee Wee Herman.
I meant to do that.
At the height of his popularity, Paul would only appear in public as Pee Wee, including talk shows, award ceremonies, and guest spots. When the time came for Pee Wee to headline his very own feature film, he would even be credited simply as himself.
That's my name, don't wear it out.
This allowed Pee Wee Herman to feel like a real person, and not just a comedy character, which most likely resulted in him becoming so iconic. Actually, iconic may be too meager of a word to describe how Pee Wee Herman dominated American pop culture, at least for a time.
You'll go crazy with Talkin' Pee-wee.
Talkin' Pee-wee from Matchbox for you and your kid. Cherry sold separately.
What's that? Major luck!
It wasn't until years after Pee Wee had exploded in popularity that Paul Reubens began to emerge as an individual performer, though he could never distance himself fully from Pee Wee.
I'm such a big fan of yours, Abraham.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's Pee-wee!
I've talked about similar entertainers before, actors who became so identified with one of their characters that they sometimes seemed to develop an antagonistic view of their zany alter egos, especially as they tried to branch out to other things. What's refreshing about Paul Reubens, though, is he never stopped embracing Pee Wee Herman. Even when the character's popularity died down, he spent decades fighting for opportunities to bring Pee Wee back, resulting in one of the greatest comeback stories in comedy history.
Can I come in? I have extra blankets.
It's 80 degrees in here.
Is that a yes?
No, but thanks.
When you see Paul Reubens appearing as himself in any interview, the contrast between him and Pee Wee is stark.
This is strange. I've never done this before, been myself, and I'm not sure. I've been doing Pee Wee for so long that I want to slip into the thing all the time.
It really makes you appreciate the character that much more. This is the story of how a soft-spoken, seemingly timid man transformed into one of the wackiest comedy creations in the history of the medium.
Today's secret word is begin.
In 1977, 25-year-old Paul Reubens had just moved to California to attend Cal Arts, though the school had not been his first choice, as he was rejected from both Carnegie Mellon and Juilliard. Paul was still elated to finally be pursuing his dream of being an actor, something he had yearned to do ever since he was a young boy. Paul grew up obsessed with TV and shows like Howdy Doody, The Mickey Mouse Club, and Captain Kangaroo, all of which would later greatly inspire his own kids' show.
Look, it's Billy Baloney. Hello, Billy. Hello, Pee-wee.
Soon after moving to LA, he joined the Groundlings comedy troupe, where he first met future collaborators like Phil Hartman and John Paragon, the latter of whom would even appear alongside Paul in an episode of The Gong Show in the late 70s.
Ooh, just the thought is thrilling. We're really sworn and debonair.
Those who knew Paul as a performer at this time often remarked that they regretted the success of Pee Wee Herman, as it kept the public from seeing the dozens of other comedy characters Reubens had created on stage each night.
The reaction was so different to that character than any other character I had done, and I had 15 or 20 other characters, pretty strong characters at the Groundlings, but I just knew somehow, I just had this funny feeling like, concentrate on this is what you should be doing.
Paul was inspired to create the Pee Wee character after watching stand-up comedians who lacked a sense of self-awareness.
Pee Wee was really, there was an extended improv being done one night at the Groundlings that was about a fictional comedy club, like the Comedy Store. And so everybody was trying to come up with characters who would be stand-up comics at a comedy club. And I can't ever remember the punchline to joke. So my character was a guy who really was a terrible stand-up comic, and that became Pee Wee.
The first name Pee Wee came from a brand of miniature harmonica, one of which Reubens owned.
Oh, sir, I'm sorry, I forgot to give you a favor. My Pee Wee-sized harmonica, it's worth the wallet.
While Herman had been the name of a high-energy kid he had known in his youth.
Paging Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman, you have a telephone call at the front desk.
Though you would expect the character would evolve over time, gradually accumulating more and more elements like the suit and bow tie, Paul was always pretty adamant that the Pee Wee Herman, who would later become beloved by millions, was the very same Pee Wee Herman that appeared on stage that very first night.
You know, it really kind of just came out that day. It never changed really very much from the first time till right this moment.
The initial audience response to the character was so strong that Paul decided to show up as Pee-wee to audition for the dating game in 1979.
It was the first time I ever knew the power of Pee Wee Herman. I walked in, and the second I walked in, I could tell every person working there was like, holy, oh my God.
Yeah, this guy's weird, man. We got a good one here.
But I could tell they were going like, this guy is on the show.
Yeah.
The show marked the first time Pee Wee Herman would appear on television.
Bachelor number 2. I can't stand it when a guy's too easy. How are you going to make things tough for me?
Well, for one thing, I'm gonna wear a bodysuit underneath my clothes.
The following year, Paul's success on stage led to him securing a small part in the Blues Brothers.
We have a Dom Perignon 71 at $120.
That'll be fine, pal.
And later, an opportunity to audition for Saturday Night Live. Producers ultimately passed on casting him, though. Dejected, Paul returned to Los Angeles, convinced his acting career was over.
And on the plane, on the way back, I totally panicked. I thought, like, I'm going to go from up-and-comer to, you know, nothing. And I just thought, you better really do something about this and take control.
Then, when casting the follow-up to Up in Smoke to be called Cheech and Chong's next movie, Tommy Chong started scouting LA improv theaters to recruit supporting players in the movie. Chong was so taken with the Pee-wee character that he hired Paul to appear as him in the film.
You know, you two look a little familiar to me.
Oh, you smell familiar.
I'm the comedian. I'll tell the jokes, okay, if you don't mind.
With the money he was paid for his small role, in addition to money donated by his parents, Paul decided to put together a stage show starring Pee-wee.
On your mark, get ready, get set, now go, 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 because it's time now for the Pee Wee Herman Show!
Together with Groundling's colleagues Phil Hartman, John Paragon, and Bill Steinkellner, Paul put together a show that drew inspiration from the children's TV shows he had grown up watching, while also having an adult edge.
2 things a sailor always looks for on a mermaid.
I know, are they round?
Sometimes.
I know. Earrings.
Though Pee-wee was the focus of the show, it was more of an ensemble piece, with Pee-wee sharing the spotlight with several crazy characters, all played by fellow Groundlings performers, like Lynn Marie Stewart, Edie McClurg, Phil Hartman, and of course, John Paragon as Jambi.
Jambi! I told you never to call me in the box.
Though it premiered at Groundlings Theater in February 1981, it became so popular that 4 months later, it moved to the larger Roxy Theater. One of those performances was even filmed and produced as a special, which aired on HBO in September. And then, Pee-wee exploded.
You're not going to see anything like this, gentlemen, anywhere in the world. Pee Wee Herman is here tonight.
So I say, ladies and gentlemen of all ages, here is the Pee Wee Herman Show.
Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Pee Wee Herman.
So, would you welcome Mr. Pee Wee Herman?
While his popularity was aided by the HBO special and appearance in Cheech and Chong's next movie, Pee-wee reached whole new heights thanks to a series of increasingly bizarre appearances on Late Night with David Letterman, beginning in 1982.
Okay, right now, we're gonna play a little game called Pee-wee Says, okay? It's really simple. It's just like, okay, shut up. Okay, put your hands in the back of you like that. Okay, look.
Take me downtown. Oh.
Hello. Okay, so you could just sit down right here because now we're gonna play in this thing right here. So I just have to, get all the.
Though Paul Reubens continued pursuing opportunities at playing other characters, getting his first starring role in an episode of Fairy Tale Theater,
I'm going to call you Pinocchio.
Pinocchio?
Not Pinocchio, Pinocchio.
By 1985, he had committed to appearing in film and television only as Pee-wee.
I'm actually considering paying for a, well...
Psychiatrist?
No, Pee-wee. You know, one of those women who takes care of men. A nurse.
The character's immense popularity was not going unnoticed in Hollywood, though, and in 1983, Paramount Pictures commissioned a feature-length film vehicle starring the character.
My story?
A movie?
Paul originally developed the first screenplay for Pee-wee's Big Adventure with Gary Panter, designer of the set for The Pee-wee Herman Show. Though Paramount optioned their script, it was never produced. Paul ended up with a film deal at Warner Brothers instead, who commissioned a totally new script.
Deal!
Paul recruited longtime collaborator Phil Hartman and screenwriter Michael Varhol to develop his new take, centering around Pee-wee's quest for his missing bike.
Everybody on a movie lot, as you probably all know, rides bikes. And so I was going, how do you get a bike? You know, no one, I'm the only person here who doesn't have a bike. And one day I came back from lunch and there was this beautiful 1947 fully restored Schwinn racer, and it was chained up to a post that had a sign with a character that said Pee-wee Herman bike parking only. And I looked at it and went, oh my God, like I'm writing the wrong movie. And literally, this will date it a tiny bit, ran in and pulled the paper out of the electric typewriter bigger than this table, and just started, you know, the bike, he loves the bike.
The only holdover from that original screenplay was the title, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Trying to use the phone!
While Pee-wee himself would be an integral part of the movie,
I know you are, but what am I?
You're a nerd!
I know you are, but what am I?
You're an idiot!
I know you are, but what am I?
I know you are, but what am I?
the success of Pee-wee's Big Adventure is owed to many people, including co-writers Hartman and Varhol and the stellar supporting cast.
I just wanted to take a quick look at that cute little outfit you have on.
Why don't you take a picture? It'll last longer.
But also Tim Burton and composer Danny Elfman, both of whom Paul cherry-picked for the project.
And went on vacation while Warner Brothers read the script. And they came back and said, here's the director of the movie, which wasn't someone who was even on my list. And it was someone who had made 2 movies that I really didn't like very much. And so I said, no, that can't be the director of the movie. And I went to a party that same night and was asking everybody I knew at the party, you know, do you know any movie directors, any new movie directors? And a woman who was in the Groundlings with me, named Mary Edith Burrell, told me, oh my God, I just saw this movie this morning. I think she had seen it that morning. Frankenweenie. The guy is the perfect director for you.
I love that story.
The 3 men aligned perfectly on the tone of the project, though, resulting in an incredibly unique comedy that has stood the test of time.
From the twisted, burning wreck, it looked like this.
There were so many moments in that movie that where it's not show-offy at all in style, but it's stylistic, like all the way through it. I think the thing that I think of the very most in that movie is the reveal of the dinosaurs. And when we get to the dinosaur sequence, I go like, I'll get out here, and I jump out of the truck, and the truck pulls away, and it wipes the frame. I mean, it just pulls the frame, and when it pulls away, it reveals those dinosaurs. And when I saw that, I almost burst into tears. I almost am right now. It was just so beautiful and so what I had hoped for in somebody putting that movie together.
The collaboration drastically altered the career paths of all 3 men, especially when the movie proved to be a hit following its release in August 1985.
Come on, Dottie, let's go.
Let's go. Don't you want to see the rest of the movie?
I don't have to see it, Dottie. I lived it.
The movie introduced Pee-wee to a whole new audience, kids.
Radical!
Reubens easily shifted the way he portrayed the character to make him more family-friendly and relatable to kids.
When I first started out, I was doing it in a comedy club at night where kids weren't allowed, and it never really, it wasn't a goal to try to figure out like what would I chop out of this, or what would I soften, or what would I change in order for kids to be involved in it. But that changed very, very quickly.
CBS took note of this. They originally commissioned a Saturday morning cartoon show starring Pee-wee. Paul, however, rejected the notion of a cartoon. He instead wanted to do a live-action show that would be reminiscent of all the kids' programming that he grew up watching.
I don't want to make a cartoon. I want to make a live-action show based or inspired by the stage show I had, which, in my mind, I had a pilot to show somebody. I could go, here, it's sort of like this.
I love that story.
In this way, Pee-wee could appear on the show in the flesh, while animated segments could still be incorporated in the form of public domain cartoon shorts.
Let the cartoon begin!
And claymation segments.
John Hancock.
Think you wrote it big enough, John? May I, Ben?
The show would be an expanded version of The Pee-wee Herman Show, featuring many of the same characters and performers.
Put her there! I love this secret word!
Why don't you marry it?
While also doing a lot of new things, such as expanding upon the world and puppet residents of the Playhouse.
La la la, I'm a fish. How am I doing?
While the original stage show was essentially a parody of kids' television, Pee-wee's Playhouse strived to be legitimate children's entertainment, a show that was educational but also enjoyable for parents to watch too.
We're going to turn
this ordinary dried up bread
into French toast!
Speaking to Rolling Stone at the time, Reubens said, "I'm just trying to illustrate that it's okay to be different. Not that it's good, not that it's bad, but that it's alright. I'm trying to tell kids to have a good time, and to encourage them to be creative, and to question things."
Do a lot of really cool stuff with a pair of giant underpants.
Just watch! Look! La 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 la. Look! A turban!
Like Big Adventure, the show was largely a group collaborative that included both children and adult performers.
Me dijeron que tenías una fiesta y se me ocurrió visitarte.
Oh, well,
as well as musicians, animators, puppeteers, and production designers that made the Playhouse feel like a truly unique place, a punk rock version of children's TV.
Zombie, there's a monster in the Playhouse!
No kidding, I thought he was your twin brother.
So funny, I almost forgot to laugh.
This also meant that the production on each episode was strenuous on the creative team. Still, the show proved to be incredibly successful, both in ratings and critically, winning 4 Daytime Emmys its first year.
Today's real secret word is great!
With Pee-wee's Playhouse taking off, it became even more important for Reubens to never be seen out of character.
Is that Eddie?
No, I'll give you a hint. Dynamite!
He presented at the 1988 Academy Awards as Pee-wee. Continued making guest appearances in movies and TV shows as Pee-wee.
Can't anybody read signs anymore? Oh, listen, we're...
Oh, good! You're open!
And even received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, once again as Pee-wee. It must have been incredibly hard for Paul Reubens to maintain this, but it's something he did so well.
I always felt like there was an element of performance art to Pee-wee Herman that I would try to make the public believe that that was a real person. So I guess it was really only performance art to me because no one ever knew at the time that I was a different person.
At this time, Paramount, the studio that originally passed on Big Adventure, lured Reubens back for a development deal that would give him the freedom to develop and oversee more Pee-wee Herman movies.
Made your favorite.
Fried chicken!
No.
Hamburgers?
No, your favorite, Pee-wee.
Cheese sandwich!
No.
The first one would once again pay tribute to his childhood.
I grew up in Sarasota, Florida, which is the old winter headquarters of Ringling Brothers, and I always thought I'd wind up in the circus. That's what I thought I was going to do.
Really?
Yeah.
In Big Top Pee-wee, Paul wanted to pay tribute to his lifelong love of the circus and its performers, and a story that would see Pee-wee joining a traveling circus.
Putting me out?
Of course you're not putting me out.
Tim Burton was unable to direct due to his involvement with Beetlejuice, and Grease director Randall Kleiser was chosen as his replacement.
Vegetarian plate.
No.
Shepherd pie?
No.
Olive loaf.
No.
There's a lot to admire about Big Top Pee-wee for sure, but audiences at the time seemed not to buy into the circus concept.
You would enjoy the circus.
Especially considering the movie had no ties to the highly successful TV show that was airing at the same time, or the popular movie that came before it.
Well, my mistake.
For whatever reason, Big Top Pee-wee flopped hard, opening at number 7, also failing to impress critics at the time.
I wish there had been more of that whimsy and less of the circus and less of the love story in Big Top Pee-wee.
I had exactly the same reaction. It seemed to me that Pee-wee had entered the real world, even marginally.
The film's surprise failure caused Paramount to end their development deal with Reubens almost overnight. The ordeal undoubtedly affected Paul Reubens, and he decided not to pursue a 6th season of Pee-wee's Playhouse. The final episode aired on November 17, 1990.
The Playhouse will always be here.
For everyone to play in. Forever and ever
and ever.
Faced with an extended break for the first time in years, Paul decided to visit family in Sarasota, where personal controversy overshadowed his acting career.
I went many years without ever being photographed out of character until one day when I was photographed out of character.
Why don't you take a picture? It'll last longer. Ah! Paparazzi!
This event, combined with the failure of the second movie, caused him to retire Pee-wee for the time being. He made an appearance at that year's Video Music Awards on MTV before hanging up the bow tie for close to 2 decades.
Heard any good jokes lately?
Over the next few years, Paul reinvented himself as a character actor in film and TV. He reunited with Tim Burton on Batman Returns and The Nightmare Before Christmas, and later mixed things up with villainous roles in movies like Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Kill him a lot.
Dunstan Checks In,
I haven't felt comfortable sitting on the john since
1967?
and Matilda.
If you cooperate, we'll make sure it's a nice orphanage.
The kind with food.
Later, he was even nominated for an Emmy for his guest role on Murphy Brown. In 1999, to promote his role in Mystery Men, Paul even began appearing in TV interviews as himself for the first time in his career.
You usually come on, or you have come on in the past as Pee-wee. Are you a little nervous?
In this same interview, though, Paul first announced his intention to bring Pee-wee back.
Start next week writing a new movie called The Pee-wee Herman Story.
So, Pee-wee, okay, you're going to do Pee-wee again. What was
I am.
Good.
It's a movie about fame.
About fame?
Pee-wee Herman becomes famous in this movie and turns into a monster.
Though he kept pursuing character roles, receiving a lot of attention for his role in 2001's Blow, Paul continued to talk about his desire to bring Pee-wee back at every opportunity, though it seemed like no studios were willing to bite. But then, years later in 2006, Cartoon Network announced it would begin airing reruns of Pee-wee's Playhouse as part of their Adult Swim programming that summer. While this was seen at the time as a gamble by the network, it soon paid off, as the show was embraced by adults who had grown up with it as children. It kick-started a nostalgic rediscovery of Pee-wee Herman. To capitalize on this, Pee-wee was invited to be a presenter at the first ever Spike TV Guys' Choice Awards the following year, marking Pee-wee's first public appearance in over 15 years. Despite having several completed scripts for potential Pee-wee movies, Paul could not seem to find any interested backers. Still wanting to bring Pee-wee back, he decided to go back to basics by orchestrating a revival of the Pee-wee Herman stage show in 2009.
The original show
was done on a shoestring budget. I borrowed $5,000 from my parents to put on the original production. That included everything, publicity, theater rental, everything. So this theater, this time we have, you know, a real budget and real people doing everything, you know, really unbelievably talented people.
Reubens partnered with theatrical producer Scott Sanders and reworked the original stage show to incorporate the world and characters later established in Pee-wee's Playhouse.
No, all the kings were there. Larry King, Stephen King, Don King.
Let me just pick up a couple of those names you just dropped.
Though Paul had reservations about playing Pee-wee as an older man, he found himself effortlessly slipping back into the role.
Why don't you make me?
You're already made, and what a mess!
I know you are, but what am I?
He launched a full publicity campaign in character, and suddenly Pee-wee was everywhere once again.
Did you guys have a nice trip out of the ring?
The show, which opened in LA in early 2010, was so successful that it resulted in a limited engagement on Broadway the following year, which was filmed for HBO.
Wow, you really do come in handy, Joe.
Best of all, like Paul hoped, the show made Hollywood interested in Pee-wee once again.
Let's take a nice deep breath and calm down, shall we?
Before the show moved from LA to New York, Judd Apatow approached Paul Reubens about collaborating on a new Pee-wee movie. While Paul had a script for the next movie ready to go, Judd wanted Paul to begin development on the film from scratch, commissioning a road trip movie similar in tone to Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
I had 2 other scripts that I thought, well, we'll make one of these, and it'll happen tomorrow. And he specifically said, try to do something in the same wheelhouse as Big Adventure and make it a road movie. And I think he was right.
Apatow paired Paul with his frequent collaborator and self-confessed Pee-wee fanatic Paul Rust to work on this new story.
The collaborator that he put me with, Paul Rust, was so enthusiastic and so excited about writing a Pee-wee movie and was such a Pee-wee fan that he had a lot to do with Judd. He sort of pushed Judd over the edge to make the movie. So
the project eventually landed at Netflix, with Wonder Chosen director John Lee at the helm.
Would you like to say a few words, Pee-wee?
Oh, sure. Encyclopedia, pimple, and hairball.
Thanks to some movie trickery, Paul was able to bring Pee-wee back to the big screen, making it look like hardly any time had passed in the 28 years since the character was last seen in a movie. Everyone that was involved in this movie had grown up a huge Pee Wee Herman fan, and it's reflected in the final product.
And he almost started crying, and I'm almost going to start to cry, like, telling you this. It's so corny, but he said to me, like, I don't know if you have any idea, like, who you're working with here. He said, but you have an entire crew of people who grew up on your show. Like, I've never been involved in a project like this.
Though it may lack the visual inventiveness of Pee Wee's Big Adventure, the movie is a welcomed epilogue that feels like dropping in on an old friend you haven't seen in a while.
LATTIHTBD. Look at the time. I have to be going.
Though Paul was hopeful there would be more Pee Wee movies to come, shortly after the release of Big Holiday, he was diagnosed with cancer. While he kept his battle private, the illness prevented him from playing the high-energy Pee Wee Herman ever again, and Pee Wee's Big Holiday would become a well-deserved final chapter for one of comedy's most iconic characters. Despite his diagnosis, Paul continued attending fan conventions and screenings of Pee Wee films.
I just want to say in closing that part of going to these Comic-Cons is so unbelievable because I feel so much love from people, and I get to sit at a table and have people tell me the most amazing, beautiful, touching things, but I get so overwhelmed and so emotional about it that I just feel so incredibly blessed and lucky that people like what I do, and I do it for that reason.
I'm so glad that he was able to finally bring Pee Wee back into the spotlight for all the fans that had grown up with him. but also for new generations who got to discover him for the very first time. Sadly, Paul lost his battle with cancer, passing away on July 30th, 2023, at the age of 70.
I always have trouble with goodbyes. The French say au revoir.
Au revoir.
In an interview to promote the movie in 2017, Paul was asked why he thinks the Pee-wee character had endured for generations, and his answer was humbling.
You know, honestly, this sounds bogus and dumb, but it's the truth. I feel like that's other people's thing. Like, I don't like to think like that about it. I get asked that kind of stuff sometimes, but I never think about it. But I'm flattered you're asking me that question. But I don't know. I have no idea, and I feel like I would jinx everything for myself if I did ask myself that or answered that.
Though Paul didn't like to analyze why the character was so popular, the answer is clear. Pee-wee Herman was loved by so many for so long simply because Paul loved playing him. Every time we saw Pee-wee on screen, from his countless interviews, movies, and TV appearances, we never for a single second sensed that this guy didn't absolutely love playing Pee-wee Herman. His love of the character was so infectious, and his commitment to playing him helped us connect with Pee-wee, not as a character, but as a person who felt real to us. This is all owed to Paul Reubens, who put his career as a character actor on hold to bring joy to generations of fans as Pee-wee Herman.
Today's secret word is end.